Hi there. Welcome to Infinite Stories. This is the podcast where we sit down and interview everyday people just like you and me. This is your host, Mitchell Vine, and boy, do we have an incredible story for you. Let's jump into this week's interview. Why don't you kind of give yourself a little introduction and what you're doing with your life right now? Just why we might be talking.
Yeah. So my name is Matt. I am a commercial video director, producer, and I have a company called AnointedForSuccess.com. I did not choose the name myself. That was literally given to me by God, and I wrestled with actually putting it up for a long time because it's such a strong... you hear the name, and it's a very strong statement. And you're like, okay, wow, this is... I got to find out more about this. And people like in the secular world might not know what anointed means. But true story, I was literally at a church service probably about 7-8 years ago. And there was a prophet who was from, I believe he was from Nigeria, Africa, and literally called me up and was like, this is what the Lord is saying about you. And at this time, I'd never had, like, I didn't know this guy from Adam. We'd never had a conversation, nothing like that. And basically, this guy read my mail. And to the point where he's like, you've been working on a lot of things, they haven't worked out, but don't worry. Like, God is saying to you that you're going to be blessed in business a lot. You are anointed for success. And I was like, okay, I've never heard that. Nobody had ever said anything like that to me. And at that time in my life, I just came out of a failed project. I was trying to sell a TV show, and it didn't work out. And I kind of wrestled with that for like a couple of years. And I was like, I think that's the business name, because it does have such a strong connotation where people will want to ask you, hey, what does that mean? Like, some people think it's cool. Other people's like, is that, a Christian spiritual thing, whatever. And I'm unique in that I can cater to both industries. I'm not secular. Don't want to just deal with Christians in general. We have a global media presence. I think that's definitely what God calls us to do. If you're in media, you want to be reaching as many people as possible, and the name is unique in itself. But I particularly don't think I'm special. Just this is kind of what God's gifted me in, is this creative vein of video production, and coming up with creative ideas and streaming services and TV shows and things like that. So that's in a nutshell, very small version. I'm a commercial video director producer who has a very big imagination, and we're about to go big with some stuff. So
Awesome.
With your help for $19.95. Come on down. We can do everything for you. Music videos, TV shows, films, you name it. We can use a Sony. We can use a GoPro. We can use a Red Dragon. We don't need to because those files are very big. But if you want to, we can.
They're ridiculous. I got called onto a project.
Jokes on there.
I got called onto a project where they handed me a Red camera, and I was just like, I need to Google how to use this. This is just out of my league. It was ridiculous.
We shot I think I sent it to you in an email. I think it's a link video. I shot a promo for a show that I'm going to make. It's called Fit for 40, and it was a surf. Basically, the show is about every single sport that you can think of. We would bring together the best trainers, athletes, nutritionists, coaches in the world to train you in something in 40 days and then see how good you can be at the end of it. But we made a promo video for that trailer. I think it was like a minute, 30-second long. And probably like 90% of the footage was shot on I think it was a Komodo, I think. And the file size... I turned to and luckily I didn't. It just came with the job. The guy who I hired was a friend of mine. It was a great DP, but he's like, "Yeah, I got this Komodo. You want to use it?" I was like, "Sure." And then I'm going through the files. I'm like, "Why is it 64 gigabytes for 5 minutes of footage? This is insane." I mean, granted, it looked cool, but like we still had to do a color correction on it. So I was like, "All right, we don't have to do this again, I guess." But thanks for the cool toys.
Yeah, that was a good experience. Well, we've kind of talked about what you're doing right now, so let's go all the way back to the beginning of the story and kind of give a little context and build our way back up. So think about all the way back to being a kiddo. Like, what was it like being a kid for you growing up? Any memories?
Not much happens in Charlotte, North Carolina in the 1980s. However, there was a young man who wanted to play basketball, and that was his dream. And after going to a Charlotte Hornets game, he decided that he was going to play in the NBA. And then God heard this idea and laughed again. And he said, "No, my son, this is not for you." So yeah, I grew up. We moved to. I was born at a military base called Camp Lejeune, We moved from there to my dad was in the Navy. He got orders to go to San Diego, Miramar. We were out there till like early 80s, 85, 86, and then got sent back to the East Coast. So we ended up growing up in North Carolina, and I was at First Assembly Christian School. I think that was a private school from like third to sixth grade. And then from there, we moved down to Atlanta, Georgia. But that whole time, like in my mind, I grew up in like the era of the Dream Team, Chicago Bulls, and Michael Jordan, and so I had so many collectible basketball cards. And like it was funny because I could never get like the Air Jordans, but my mom got me the Voights and Spaldings from Target or whatever it was. She's like, "Look, they have an air bubble." I was like, "That's not the same." People at school will make fun of me. I can't wear these. She's like, "No, you just go out there and play and do your best." I was like, I think finally I got a pair of like really nice Converse or something. But that was my like the basketball shoe story. But yeah, so we moved down to Georgia in the '90s, and right actually when the Olympics happened in '96, and then I graduated high school. Kicked around for about a year because I was in theater when I was in high school, and that's when I kind of really found this creative. I didn't know it at the time. I didn't know what it was, and it was just this thing where I got cast in the lead as a play called "You Can't Take It With You." It was an amazing experience for me as like a 17-year-old because I came in to read for this really small part, and I was so excited because my voice had dropped and I had like I was just kind of getting my hey, I'm so and so thing. And so it was for this FBI agent, and the story, if you know the story, it takes place like in the 20s or 30s. And so the line was like something along the lines of like, "Hey, you guys, get up against the wall, freeze, don't move, everybody calm down. All right, who's in charge here?" And I nailed this line. I was like, "Oh man, I got this. I'm so happy." And so all the people, the teacher and the students were like, "Yeah, he's good, yeah." And so a week later, they post the casting sheet up on the door. And I don't see my name on there. And I immediately am very angry. I was like, "What?" It's like, there's nobody that read that better than me. And so I go to walk away, and three of my friends start grabbing me, and they're like, "Hey, did you see the list?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not up there." And they go, "No, look." And I had been looking below the main cast because I didn't audition for any of the main cast parts. Because I was new. I didn't have any idea what I was doing. And so I was like not the call sheet because it wasn't call sheet, but I was like number 2 on the cast list. It was like this guy, his name was Tony, and he was the fiance to the lead, and I was like, I didn't even know how to take it. I'm like, "Wait, what?" And that kind of started me down the path of, I had like 127 lines in the play I had to memorize, and this was like a 4-month rehearsal. It was a great experience just to kind of get my foot in the door when I was a young guy. And that led to, I remember opening night of the play, I walked out on stage and I had this line, and my fiance says something. She says, "Well, I don't want you to go." And I said, "Well, I don't want to go." She says, "Well, maybe you shouldn't." And I say, "All right, then I won't." And just the way I delivered those lines, I didn't think in rehearsal, because there's nobody there, so we're performing to an empty audience. When I said it that way in front of I don't know 500 people or something like that, it got a huge laugh. And in my mind, I was like, "Okay, I don't know what that just was, but I think this is my thing now. Like, how do I get back to that?" And that's kind of what kicked off everything in entertainment, was just that one moment right there. And I've been broke ever since. No, I'm just kidding.
And loving every minute.
And loving every minute of it. But yeah. But what's funny is what happened after that is, this is the late '90s in Atlanta, so unlike today where everything's shot there, nothing was going on. So I was working 2 jobs back to back. I worked at Target and like a Foot Locker sports shoe place, and just nothing. I couldn't make it 2 sticks rub together. I was killing myself for little money, and my dad was like, "You gotta do something. You gotta get out of the house or go join the military." So I went to the Air Force. And I was in the Air Force for 4 years, got out, did reserves for another year. And then a friend of mine who I was in theater with in high school had gone to LA. And he's like, "I got a couch. You can come crash." But luckily, I also had a job offer I was working at a motorcycle store in Atlanta. And one of the guys who was a helmet rep said, "I think they've got this job opportunity out here. It's not much, but it could get your foot in the door." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I'll give it a shot." And like 3 months later, I was on a plane to LA, and that's. I have to preface that story actually with a very interesting miracle that happened. So I was actually on my way to church, and I had bought a motorcycle because I got really heavy into motorcycles when I was in the military, And I went to church on my motorcycle, and I was coming back, and that next week I was supposed to leave to drive from Atlanta to California on the motorcycle. So in my mind, like, this is going to be fantastic. It's like a road trip of a lifetime. We got to pack my bags and do it. And on the way back from church, I T-bones, not intentionally, another car who, funny enough, was actually coming from church themselves. So, like, he's coming from church, I'm going to church, boom, hit, didn't even see him. I was fine, the bike was destroyed, he was fine. Just one of those weird things where, like, God protected the whole thing, but in the back of my mind, it was one of those things where you could have easily given up and said, okay, I'm not supposed to go to California. But that wasn't it. I felt like a peace in my spirit, like, I'm protecting you. This is not the way that you need to go out there, but, you know, you've got the green light to go. So it was a very weird experience, but also, too, like, very humbling from the spiritual perspective of, wow, if I can be protected from this, like, who knows what else could happen. And yeah, so, and the stories that followed after that are the stuff of legend.
Oh man. Okay. Well, before moving forward a little bit more, I love
Yeah,
asking this back
unpack
near the
all
beginning.
that.
Yeah. There's stuff. There's gold there, but
Yeah.
I love asking, what did it look like when you first encountered or understood sin for the first time? Can you picture anything along those lines?
Sometime in the '80s when I was like 4 years old. That's a deep question, man. Hmm. I think when I was little, I lied about something, and I grew up in the church. Famously, I say that I got saved when I was like 6 years old, but I was in church since I was a baby. So, but I remember this one specific time where I got caught in a lie when I was young. I think it was about like a toy or something like that. And my mom's like, "Did you take the toy?" I was like, "No, I didn't take it." She's like, "Well, I found it in your bedroom." I was like, "Oh, what do I do? What do I do now? I'm not gonna be able to play this one off." Um, that was like the first recollection of that. So, yeah, I think that was the first time. And then we had a very deep conversation about what lying is and why you can't do it. And I don't know, it stuck, and then it didn't stick later in life, and then it stuck again. So I've had to. I promise, I'm not a habitual liar. But
Not
that was
yet.
one of those. Yeah, that's one of those things that definitely. The more kind of we grow, in our relationship with God, it's just one of those things where, man, because the world is so used to doing things on a regular basis, and the way that they do it is, that's kind of part of business, or it could be like, oh, well, I'm going to fudge the truth on this, or we're going to slide the scale, and I think there's a famous line in the movie The Firm with Tom Cruise where he says, he goes, you want me to break the law? And he goes, no, versus I want you to see how far you can bend it without breaking it. And so that's not, as Christians, that's what we're called to do. Like, it's better if you're open and upfront, and people genuinely respect that more than if they find out that something happened that, hey, well, why didn't you tell me this? Oh, well, that's not the way we do business. Like, well, I'm not going to do business with you anymore, sort of thing. So,
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think it's a proverb that talks about like the uneven scales and stuff like that, and I can even picture a couple of the different dealings that I had with business over the past year or so, and just needing to make amends over different situations, because I just realized, I was like, even if it was just by that much, I need to make sure that much gets paid back, or whatever it might be. That's just
right.
That's something that God really pressed heavy in my heart. So that's good. That's really good. You talked about the whole interaction with the play and everything. In the middle school and high school years, typically there are a lot of lies that we find ourselves believing. Was there any foundational lies that really stuck out to you in those years at all?
Not really. Because I was it was a weird, I don't want to say transitional state, that's not the right word, but when you basically, because I was kind of telling you before about the basketball thing, but that wasn't a joke. Like, I was very serious about up that into a very, like, a specific point in time. But, like, there was a shift that happened after 16, 17 where I knew that I was just going to go this way. I had no idea how I was going to get there. I didn't know what it entailed. And I was like, I think I could go do this basketball thing, or I could do this sports fitness thing. However, I think this other thing is going to make me way more happy. And so, if anything, like, it's funny, one of the verses in the Bible that I love is, The heart is deceitful above all else. Which, the first time you read it, you're like, wait, what? That doesn't make sense. So, getting caught up in kind of the emotion of what I thought something, entertainment was going to be versus what it actually was, what was there for me was the creative birth of what, God had placed inside me. That's what was waiting. The reality of the situation is when you don't really know, because, like, let's be honest, like, once you figured out how to play a sport, you just become better at the sport. Entertainment was a thing where just like I didn't know which way I was going. So, and then it took me another 6, 7 years to even get to that point in time. But I think there was definitely some early stuff where I thought, based on this experience emotion that I had, this was kind of going to carry me through, and that wasn't true. Like there was, and to this day, there's been like a lot of hard times in between, but it's because it's difficult to say. I don't want to turn people off from their emotions. That's not what I'm trying to say, but there is something about you kind of have to pray about stuff when you balance scales with creativity because it can be a wonderful black hole that you go down and you're like, wow, this is fantastic. And at the same time, it's yes, but how much time are we putting into this? What's the end goal? What's the result? And for a lot of people, you really got to pray about this stuff because it can be this thing that's just overwhelming. And especially for me, still to this day, I'll have ideas where I go, wow, that's massive. Do I want to undertake that, or do I want to kind of put that aside? Because I'm a 100% guy. Once I'm in, we're going till the end, like until we run out of gas on the side of the road or the car blows up. Like it's just like I can't let it go. I'm like a dog with a bone, and it's not like an unhealthy thing, but it's one of those things where it's kind of like when you realize the potential of something from both a business and a creative standpoint of what it can do versus I just want this to succeed. That's when things start to get really heavy, and that's people should obviously pray about this stuff way in advance before it gets there. But it's one of those things. And like I said at the beginning of this, we're made to kind of, if you're in media and you're serious about it, like it's not I don't relegate myself to the United States. Most of the stuff that I've developed and want to produce is for international, audiences. The story's going to be told around the world. So there's a certain weight to that you have to calculate, heavily because you are going to go through some serious trials to get that stuff off the ground. But also, too, the reward on the other side is just, tremendous. So it's not about fame. You're not chasing fame. That's not the right word. But the gravitas of what you're doing, under prayerful consideration, cannot be underestimated. Like you really got to take time to think about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Words of wisdom. Yes, yes.
Yeah. No, I'm kind of picturing like a little smoke in the room and just like nodding my head, like yeah. No,
I saw an Instagram post this morning. It was a guy who had a Ninja Turtles coffee cup, and it was like from the famous line from the first movie. He's like, "Wise men say forgiveness is divine, but never pay full price for late pizza." I just remember that so well when I was a kid.
Oh man. Okay, so let's fill in the gaps a little bit more. You talked about military. You talked about the accident. What kind of happened in the story between the accident and leading you up to where you are today? Kind of fill in the gaps of the story.
Yeah. So we go from I leave, and a special shout out to actually it was at the time it was my girlfriend's mother, and she saw what was going on. And I actually wasn't staying at my parents' house anymore. We had like an argument. It did not go well. So she actually came in and swooped in and actually saved me for me to actually get to California. I think she gave me like $1,000 or $900, something like that. She's like, I see this creativity in you, and she was outside of my really close friends. She was the biggest cheerleader that I had. She's like, I see this in you. You got to go do this. And so she gave me enough money to get a plane ticket to go to LA. So I go out there. On the couch for about 2 weeks. Got the job from the guy that was the helmet rep, the company there. I was there for a couple months, and then I had a really weird thing that I did not anticipate happening because the plan was go out there, stay at the job, make some money, figure out the entertainment thing. And 3 months in, it was, I could stay here and I could be at this company for 30 years. I don't think that's what I'm supposed to do, which is really hard to wrestle with when you've left everything that you know behind. Like, I don't know how much stuff I had with me at the time in Georgia, but I didn't bring 95% of it with me out to California. That's like starting my whole life, which was a little complicated because I was almost engaged at that point. Like my girlfriend and I were seriously talking about marriage, and we'd gone through premarital counseling just to be able to get married. And it was a whole thing. So yeah, it was not a big deal. It was not a small deal for me to go to California because I remember being in the room praying about it for a week. Like, didn't watch TV, didn't play video games, didn't do anything. I was like, am I supposed to do this because this is a really big deal? I don't want to mess it up. Like, show me a sign. Like the whole thing. But so I go out there, and then it took me about really 4 years of working jobs and trying to figure out like how to break into the industry. And what was the catalyst was two things. I did something I'd never done before, which was I tried stand-up comedy, and so I was doing that for like 3 years, and I got to play all the. I wasn't famous, like you can't look me up and find me, unfortunately. I might have a DVD somewhere that I shot at the Comedy Store, but it's like 5-6 minutes or something like that. So I'm sorry, internet, it's not. Maybe somebody has it somewhere, but I don't know where it is.
I just got so excited.
I know. Straight to Matt Hansen Comedy Store 2007. But during that time, I had a really cool thing where I got to work the Oscars because of my security background in the military. So I got to work the Oscars back to back in 2007 and 2008, I think it was. And that was crazy because once you see behind the curtain, it's like Pandora's box is open. You're like, okay, what else do I not know about the world? And because of the military had opened up more money for GI Bill at the time. So I ended up going to Los Angeles Film School in LA. And that was really when kind of everything unlocked. I'd like to say that's when God kind of gave me this is your wheelhouse sort of thing. Because up at that time, I was up until I'd been watching movies and doing comedy, but I didn't understand structure and editing and producing and screenwriting and directing and cameras and audio and everything like that. So that was a really great experience for me with that school because it was an intensive program where like the first month you were there, you were making a movie. So like you weren't discussing film theory, like what does it mean when Hitchcock turned the camera this way? They're like, here's a camera, here's an audio, here's a light. You have to go make a 6-minute movie, and we're going to judge you at the end of it.
Nice.
which is like, okay. But the thing that came out of that was I was part of a really cool experience where the team that I was put on, we actually did a really good job. And it was to credit to the guys, forgive me, I forget his name. He was a young guy from Russia. He was like a producer. He happened to know a guy who was an orchestra operatic singer. And so he came up with this idea where he had fallen from grace and had to get back in, and he was mentoring this young child who had mental issues, and it was a beautiful little story for like 6-minute film. To the point where when they showed it and screened it, they invited. I don't know why they did this because this is hardcore for young filmmakers, but they invited people from the industry to come see it and like judge it. And I think when I look back on it, it's kind of like the military where they're trying to weed stuff out of you early, and so. Almost every other project that got shown, they went, yeah, this is not good. What are you doing producing? Don't produce anymore. What are you doing directing? Don't be a director anymore. When it got to our film, the guy stood up and he said, who did this? And all 4 or 5 of us stood up. He goes, when you guys get better, and I'm serious about this, come see me after you graduate, because if this is the content that you're producing now, you're going to be very successful in Hollywood. It's like, whoa! And I was older than everybody else too. I was, I think, 29 at the time, and everybody else was in their early 20s. So I took it on a weird, different level. I was like, wow, okay. And that got me through, that created some serious inspiration for the next like 18 months at the school. So that was kind of the kickoff point, and yeah, from then it's been the resume is, it both makes sense and doesn't make sense, but it's just one of those things where I got to do a lot of stuff in a lot of different areas. But my passion was kind of directing and producing, and especially from a creative aspect, is when you start to put your own stuff together, that's when it gets real. So, hiring your own teams, coming up with the concepts, and because I was working in motorsports before that, I had a love of motorcycles and cars and action and stuff, and that's kind of what kicked off everything as I started making motorcycle videos in Los Angeles about my ride experiences and what I thought of bikes and everything like that. That was really the kind of kickoff point to make commercials. So yeah.
Man, did you ever find that guy again after school?
I found a lot of people. I don't know if it was him particularly, but I got to work with some just huge talents. But what actually I got to give a shout out to my friend Randy because he got me a job as a at a post. I want to say this. I want to say this official title right, so in case everybody looks it up on IMDb, I was the post associate. I was not the post producer. That was not my gig, but I was like the post production assistant. I think was the is the right term. So there was a show on FX called The League, and it was about these guys that were betting on sports or stuff like that. It was pretty popular at the time, and so my friend called me up on a Friday, and he goes, "Can you start work on Monday for the next 4 months?" And at the time, I was like, "Yes." And he goes, "All right, I need you to be a post production assistant, and you're just going to run footage back and forth and bring people coffee, and but it pays decent." And I said, "Yeah, I'm in for sure." But during that time, we got to talking, and we kind of sat down and had a few conversations. And he goes, "You talk about motorcycles a lot. Why don't you do something with motorcycles?" And that was really, and this is already I already graduated from film school at this point in time, but that really kind of lit a fire in me to kick off, being creative and taking the skills that I had learned in film school to really kind of put them into practice and stuff like that. So, props to Randy for that.
Man, that's wild. You kind of mentioned back near the beginning of the story, like being saved at a relatively young age.
Yeah.
What did that look like for you? Do you think it was like the real aha salvation moment, like I totally get it, or did it look differently for you down the line?
This is my one gripe about my salvation Christianity story is, and it might be funny. I think it's funny because I don't have a great one, and I always, since I'm a storyteller, I always want to have that. I was killing 3 people a week in San Antonio, and the Lord got a hold of me, and He was like, "You can't do this anymore. I love you." And I was like, "I know, God. I'm sorry." I don't have that. It's more like I was saved at a young age. I remember like little milestones though. Like when I turned 14, I had a really interesting church experience with the Holy Spirit, and then another when I got to California when I was 26. There was a point where I said, "I don't know how any of this is going to go, but I'm trusting you with it." And if I could go back in time and repray that prayer, I would have said, "I'm going to give you 8 years, and then I'm not going to do this anymore." Because I think this might be too painful.
Sounds like a Gideon and the fleece moment of like,
right,
here's
right.
my stipulations. Can you work in this?
Right. But yeah, and then again, I can remember very specifically when I was 35. There's a church out in LA called Oasis LA. Great church. Love it there. Super multicultural diversity. It's just a lot going on. And they had an internship program, and I took it with about, I think we had, I want to say like 22, 23 other people. Forgive me if the number's not right, but that was really a big point in my life where God got a hold of me, and I had really time to kind of, not that I didn't before, but I just wasn't really serious about it, to really hone in on His Word and just not focus on anything but this internship for like this, I think it was like 4 or 5 months. And just being involved in church and being a volunteer and just giving of my time in a way that I'd never done before, and that really kind of put something on my heart that wasn't there. And I remember a very specific thing that happened to me. We had been told a story that somebody was trying to come over from Africa, and I forget which country they were from. It might have been Kenya or Nigeria or something like that, but they could not get to the country, and it was a visa issue, and they've been trying to give them a visa or a passport or something like that, and they couldn't do it, and they've been, like, for 2 years, they've been trying to get this girl a visa. And so we had started an intercessory prayer team at the church, for our circle, for the internship program. And I remember it was a Tuesday morning at like 11 o'clock, and I was at my home just, like, reading the Word, and this... It was God, because it wasn't any other things. He popped into my head and he's like, "I want you to pray for that girl to get her passport." And I'd love to tell you that my response was, "Absolutely, Lord, I'm on it." But because of the story that had been told to us through the church of how difficult it was almost kind of like it was like a command, like, "I want you to do this because, like, your prayer has power." And in the back of my mind, I went, "Okay, I'll do it. But if this doesn't come through, I'm going to tell everybody that you told me to do it and it doesn't work out. Almost like
The
putting
blame
God
is
on
on you.
putting God on blast, sort of thing like that. Because it was such a heavy story. If you heard the story of like how difficult it was, and I think this was kind of a challenge to me. It was kind of like a little prayer thing, like, do you believe that your prayer has the power that you say it has? Because if 20 other people who are way more, spiritual than me, quote unquote, are doing this and they're not getting results, what do you think I'm going to do? And of course, this is wrong thinking, if you know your Bible. But I said, okay, I'll do it, and prayed about it sincerely for about 2 or 3 days, forgot about it, and then there was a women's conference that came into LA, and everybody was on like a break. I think it was like a break in the conference. Excuse me, I got something in my throat here. Yeah. So, everybody was on a break and they walked away from like their stations, and like there was a intermission or something like that. And the girl that we had all been praying for, unbeknownst to any of us, had gotten her visa and had come to the States, and she was able to attend the conference. And we'd been shown her picture, and so we knew who she was. And she just kind of came in the door, and everybody was like, "Oh, wow!" And I hung back because I didn't want to get involved. I was just like, "All right, I'm going to talk to you because I'm going to find out. I'm going to find out what happened." And sure enough, she goes. I came up to her after everybody gone away, and I said, "Hi, my name is Matt. I don't know if this is going to mean anything to you, but I have to ask because I have to know for my own kind of sanity. The Lord told me to pray for you on a Tuesday at like 11 o'clock in the morning." And she goes, "Wait, say that again." I said, "Lord told me to pray for you a Tuesday at like 11 o'clock in the morning here." And she said, "I got my passport that afternoon." She said the circumstances were weird because they just called me and said, "Hey, we're sorry this took so long, but your passport's ready, it's here." So I don't know what the timeline difference was from LA to Africa, but same day, God did it. So that really kind of was a big moment for me to go, okay, faith ignited, let's pray some bigger prayers, sort of thing. And I've been broke ever since.
You mean humble? Humble.
Yeah.
That makes me think of what is that book? Dangerous Prayers. I don't know if you ever heard of that. I think it's Craig Groeschel. Just talks about like all those wimpy prayers of like, God, just protect me. God, please do this. God, thank you for the food. All that kind of stuff. And it's like,
I don't have
God,
those.
can you please move this mountain?
I don't have those. Like we need a blue Ferrari by next Thursday. Let's go. That's my level.
God's like, maybe a green one, but
don't come onto my set praying little prayers as I can work. I'm like, we need to go on top of that tower. I'm gonna need a 360 drone shot. Something's got to be on fire. Yeah, like I don't have, and I think that's kind of, if you talk about moments in a relationship with God, it's you can't move past certain points. You can read the Bible all day long. There's nothing wrong with that, don't get me wrong. But there's something about when God does something on a large scale that ignites your faith, and once you've seen it happen, you can't forget it. Because no matter what else happens to you in your life, you're like, I remember that point in time when that thing happened. I mean, that's just one of many examples that I have when big things happen, but it sticks with you. And I think that once God reveals stuff like that to you, there's no turning back. What's the scripture in the New Testament? He's like, I prefer you either be cold or hot, but you can't be lukewarm. So, right.
Yeah, no, even the Bible study that I was having with my siblings this morning, we were talking about just the Israelites gathering manna in the desert right after the Exodus, where God did all the plagues, he split the Red Sea, all these different things, and they still doubted that there was going to be enough food for them to take a Sabbath. And it's just like, did you not see the plague? Like, did you not see what God was capable of?
Yeah.
And it kind of irritated me, but then God definitely convicted me in that moment of like, yeah, you do the same thing though, so you need to pump the brakes a little bit. You've seen me do some pretty great things, and you still doubt me on a day-to-day basis. And it's just like, okay, God, like, please just increase my faith. I think that was either Elijah or Elisha talks about like whatever measure of faith that he had, I want twice as much, maybe more than that. And just like, yeah, I want that, God.
I'm going to throw my hat in the ring here. I've seen some interesting things. I've been a part of some interesting things. I've never seen a sea part. So I'm gonna stand up and say, if I saw a sea part, I would be on like the top 10% of like, guys, the sea parted. Be like, yes, but we don't have the right to chicken. I'm like, forget about the chicken. Did you see the sea part?
We
Like,
walked through it.
We walked through it. I was watching the blue whale. Whatever. Like whatever the
Like,
scene
even,
from
like, the
whatever the scene from Prince of Egypt is, where they're walking. You're like, oh, I'm like, all right. Here's what we saw. Like, yeah, but we don't have the right mana today. I'm like, I understand, but
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, yeah, no, those are some of the questions that I can't wait to ask Israelites in heaven. I'm like what? Not like you can't sit, so it's like you can't even
Yeah.
reflect on the things you did wrong. But oh my gosh, yeah, I can go
Or-
on a whole rabbit hole with that.
here's a crazy theory. Whoever wrote the Bible, the story was a bit overblown. Yes, he did part the Red Sea. However, it was only like 2 feet off the ground. So they're walking through and they're like, okay. And that's how they got across. So it wasn't like 40 feet tall. So somebody was embellishing, was like, and the waves were 70 feet high. Oh, write that down. That's a good one. Yeah. Could you see the sharks? Yeah. Right through the waves. All right. That's the comedian in me is like, yeah. But yeah, no, I agree. This once you saw that, you're like, okay. But to that point, I had something happen to me last week, and God did a crazy big favor miracle for me, and I still had like the 2 days later, I was like, why are we not this? It's more kind of like, not that you don't believe him, and I think a lot of people go through this, is like the struggle about, you want things to happen in a certain time, and we just can't see, because God is, I always like to say, God is playing 4-dimensional chess, and we're playing checkers with rocks, sort of. Just like click, click, click. But the things that are moving, and the prayers that we're praying about our careers and life and the goals and everything like that, getting to the place of really full peaceful trust is still hard. And I'm in my 40s now, and I'd like to think I'm halfway there, maybe, but I still have days when I'm just like, I don't even want to do this anymore. Like, you've given me this dream, this creative thing, and it's big, and I've talked to all these people, and what's going on, and we don't have the financing, but I'm talking to giant companies, and like this whole keep pressing on, keep pressing on, keep pressing on. So yeah, I'll just be transparent. It's something I still struggle with, every other day on some level. I'm trying not to. Try it.
Well, join the club. Join the club. Kind of looking back through your story, my favorite character in every book and every movie is always the mentor character, the grumpy old man, the Yoda, everything along those lines. Can you think of any mentors or guides that have kind of been there for you throughout your story?
Yes, but, and this is actually a thing I have been praying about recently, is the thing that I'm doing now is I don't know anybody that's ever done it before. So I can give you touchstone points where a coach talked to me about something, or somebody that was like a really cool motorcycle rider said something to me, or somebody in film school who was a teacher said, this is a really great concept, you should really flesh this out and go for it. But as far as having that one person, I could say I have a really good friend of mine. It's a Christian brother of mine. His name is Brett, and me and him talk pretty much like every week consistently. He's been like a really good rock for me to kind of bounce stuff off of, and we've been through a lot of the same stuff. And he has a crazy resume, and God's got him in a place right now where he's just like, oh, I'm doing it. I don't understand it, but I'm trusting in him to work this out. He's kind of the best kind of friend / mentor that I've had with regards to like Christian realm. But this is something I'm actually seeking right now, is somebody that's in this like a media mogul business space, because as I said, none of my stuff is small. Like you said you were in Iowa, right? Yeah, so to use like a reference, I'm never the guy that's going to come in and be like, we're going to be the best video production in Iowa about raising cattle, and I'm going to give God all the glory. It's like, it's just not my thing, and I'm not trying to downplay anybody who does anything like that, but my stuff has always been huge, super global stuff, just because that's the way the Lord shows it to me. So I don't have this switch where I go, we're just going to do TikTok videos and they're going to be amazing. It's just like, nah, son. And there's something about that where, like, seeking out the people that have done things like that, both in secular world and Christian world, very few and far between. So this is something that I'm, praying about. Is like, Lord, bring me these. It could be one person, it could be two people, but there's things that I don't know that I need to know to advance. Not so much on a production level, because like, give me a crew, we can do anything. But it's more about like long-term play. We're talking business. You're talking media. What's going to be happening in the next 4 to 5 years? With streaming services, with film. What's interesting that happened in the last 4 years was when I think Top Gun, the Top Gun Maverick movie, made bajillions of dollars. Nobody really foresaw that except for like maybe Tom Cruise and two other people, but they had the option to put it on streaming, and the story goes, Tom said like, absolutely not. This is a four film audience experience, and sure enough, he was right, and it was. So I think about stuff like that, where are we going to be in 4 years with film, because streaming is now dominating everything. I watch 90% of the stuff on YouTube and Netflix and Amazon, but I have an idea in my head for a big giant film, and it's the only way that you should be able to see this, because that's what kind of story it is. So people that have been getting down that road and thinking about that stuff, really kind of connecting with the right people on that level, because there's just stuff that I don't know that I need to know, and I'm not foolish enough to go, yeah, we're just gonna go do it. Like, nah, 'cause that's gonna be $180 million, and we're gonna need to
Can't just throw that out.
we're gonna need to speak like old Aramaic Israeli when we're doing. It's just this whole thing. I see it clearly in my mind, but the path and the steps to do it versus kind of what I'm doing now, very different levels. So yeah.
No, absolutely. So then, kind of on the flip side of that, do you picture yourself as a guide or a mentor to any of the people that you interact with?
Humbly, very humbly, yes. Just because of the experiences I've had, I've been able to do a lot and talk with a lot of people about many different things. So, what's the phrase? Jack of all trades, sort of. And also, I'm getting, I'm a little bit older now. I'm in my early 40s, but I do have these incredible life lessons and just kind of stuff. For me, it's kind of, I like to say it this way: why don't you believe in yourself, or why don't you? If God's put this creative vibe in you, what's stopped you from really doing it? And to go back to your earlier question, maybe some of the lies that we believe, it's really going to get beating down by the world or what's happened to you. Because a lot of people have gone through some stuff, and I think I don't know if I shared this with you the last time we talked, but there was a point, like in my life 2 years ago, where I seriously started contemplating suicide, because I was at this. Everything that I up to that point in time, we were about to launch a really big show. It failed. I didn't get the right money. People tried to backstab me. I owed a lot of people money. It was just not a good scenario, and I saw no way out of it. Just like, even if I do come back from this, I'm always going to be labeled as the guy that messed up, or he didn't pay, whatever the situation was. But that was really hard, and thankfully I had somebody that I could call who was a Christian friend. I was like, I'm feeling this way. I know I'm not supposed to feel this way, but God hasn't got me out of the situation. I'm working at this job I hate. I don't know what to do. This is not good. And as you see, I'm sitting here before you today as a testament to God. But a lot of people have this thing where, like, this is the thing about making it, quote unquote, being successful, at least the way we see it, is if your life is guided by God and you are supposed to be creative on a really big level, the hard reality is you gotta go through some really tough stuff, because that's what's going to make you resilient to the point where you're kind of like Teflon after a while. Like, everything just bounces off you and you have to keep moving. And that's kind of the thing, is that some people just don't have it in them, and they're made to do amazing things. So for me, from a mentor perspective, is I'm very good at telling my story. At the same time, I'm very interested in why other people are creative. And like, why do you have this thing in you that either you're not pursuing, you're not doing it, or what's really stopping you is the question. And a lot of people say it's finances. Well, some of that's true, but at the same time, you can talk to people and you can say, hey, I have an idea. I don't know how to do it, but I feel really passionate about this, or this is what God's laid on my heart to do. Will you help me find somebody or commit? Like, it's just about face-to-face conversation 99% of the time, and that's all it is. But a lot of people are just kind of really, like, they don't believe in themselves, and I think that's kind of anti-Christian, really. Like, read the New Testament and read what read what it says, because I came to give you life and give it more abundantly. that's a
Hmm.
heavy statement. But what does that mean? Like relationship wise, business wise, what are you doing with talking with your family? That's levels to that thing. And if you really break that down, and what Jesus is saying is like, there's so much here. There's so much here for you. But the first step is, it's faith. It really is. So yeah.
Hmm. No, absolutely true. Absolutely true. Well, kind of shifting more into the application and the shared wisdom portion of the questions that I have. Are there any influential books, podcasts, or any people that have kind of really pressed into you and what has kind of made you to where you are today?
Uh, I read a book a couple years ago, and I know the name of the author by his first name. It's Lee. That's
That's
it.
a start.
It's called Pearls of the King.
Pearls
I
of
don't
the
know if you've
King.
ever heard about it, but it was a guy. He's very successful in southern part of the United States. I think it was in Alabama or Mississippi, but he had owned a. I think him and his partner started the automotive trading online, like cars.com or something like that. Forgive me.
Hmm.
But it was basically about how he saw himself, and he was a very well-to-do person originally in life, but he had done it all wrong. He got involved with the wrong people and stock market and stuff like that, and people were doing drugs and all kinds of stuff. And the Lord kind of brought him out of that, but he was incredibly successful in two or three different ventures. And so the book Pearls of the King is about how we see ourselves as kings under a king, and kind of how we hate to lack and what that means and what the word says about that, and what we're supposed to do. Really, really great book from somebody who has been successful. Just kind of about his story. Secondarily, getting out of kind of the Christian space is there was a guy, I'm sure everybody that watches YouTube really familiar with this. His name's Casey Neistat.
Hmm.
Dude, that guy got me through COVID, and he ignited a fire in me that I didn't know was there, because I saw one video of his where he was like in New York City, and he was getting pulled by like a jeep, and he was on a snowboard. I don't know if you ever saw that one.
Yep. Oh
Bro,
yeah.
that video did something to me that I was like, why do I feel this way? I can do anything. And it was like, no lie, I kid you not. 2 weeks after that, I bought my first drone. It was like a DJI Mini 2. And that put me on a whole different trajectory of just like learning craft about drone stuff, and which
Hmm.
led to stuff to, what are we in 2025? Led to stuff like 2 years later. So it was, yeah, like that was just, he was just a really inspirational guy.
Hmm.
And I don't think he has a really wrong message with a lot of stuff that he says. It's just like he is about like, get it, keep going. Doesn't matter what happens, get it. Did you see the one he did I think it was like last year, where he finally broke his record of the marathon? They've been
Yes.
trying to do it for like 12 years. I'm like, man,
Yeah.
like I've got faith, but I don't even know if I can do something for that long. And he was in his, I think he was like 42 when he did it or something. Yeah,
Yep.
under
Yep.
the
Definitely.
under the minute and certain minutes, but like, yeah, man, because I love it in that video. I don't know what we can say or can't say on there, but he says something. He's like, so at this point in time, nobody's looking at me, nobody cares. It's not really important that I do this, so I might as well just give up. And I'm paraphrasing, but he's like, screw that.
Yep.
Keep going. And I was like, man, I need this guy to be like my surrogate brother. Just like, how you feeling today? Well, not so great. Well, go run a marathon. What?
Like, okay.
Yeah, but no.
Yeah, no, he's like the ultimate hype man. Like,
Dude.
if I remotely lived nearby him and I
Yeah.
could spend at least like a day or an hour with him consistently, I definitely think my creative juices would be flowing
I've
a
tried
lot
to reach
more.
out to him and his people at least 3 times. He's very busy, so I'm sure I don't know if
Oh,
you've
yeah.
ever read any of this stuff like that. But I would just, if I ever saw him in person, I wouldn't even be trying to get him on a show or doing that. I just want to say, hey, I just want to say thank you, man. You're just truly inspirational. And to kind of go on a different tangent with that, we need people like that in our industry. I think more people like that on both sides, both on the Christian side and the secular side, about like, hey, you can do this, keep going, this is what it takes. Reach out to some people, find out how to do things. Because what is the option? What's the other alternative? Give up? I don't want to read that story. Like, and that's not going to be my story. It's like, I tried really hard for 20 years, and I said, screw it. Because I'm a weird dude where like I have two sides to me, where I'm incredibly ambitious for the right creative reasons. I want to see stuff made on a really high production level. And if you go to my website, you'll see that. Like, there's a certain way that I just do stuff. At the same time, it would not take much to tempt me to move to Italy and just drive a Vespa and sip cappuccinos for the next 20 years if you could promise me like unlimited gelato and an Italian wife that would be like, all right, so here is what we're going to do for you. You have 15 Vespas. You have one wife, all the gelato you can eat. You do nothing with the rest of your life. I will think about
Maybe.
this. Yeah. Because it's at the end of the day, it's just, man, you know, you have to succeed. And I say all that it's a funny joke, but it's true. Like, you have to have success on a certain level, and that success has to, you don't, it's not so much you chasing success, but once you've seen something done in a really well, like a high level way, that's kind of the benchmark, and it always has been for me. Is once I produced my first really great video, and this is the thing that we're called to do, you know, as Christians too, is like excellence. As a saying in the Air Force, part of the core values is like integrity first, service above self, excellence in all we do. And for me, that's true both in, you know, secular world and as a Christian. Is like, this is a high watermark. So once you do this, this is what you're known for, and you can't really go below that, you know, unless you're doing like something like Instagram or TikTok, just having fun talking to people. But as we're talking about like production level stuff, that's where it's at. And especially for me, that's where my mind is always like, okay, if we're gonna do this, this is how it's gonna be done. This is how it's gonna look. This is how it's gonna feel, and we don't waver from that. You know, so.
Man,
it's a big
that's
answer.
good.
I don't know it's a big answer to that question, but that's true. It's like I have either we're doing it this way or we're not doing it. And if we're not doing it, I'm going to Italy and call me like
Italy is plan B.
I will be the espresso gelato guy. Today we are in Tuscany and we're trying Mama Gino's gelato. This is the best Italian gelato. I believe you, Mama Gino. I believe you. Yeah.
Well, I'm pretty sure I already know the answer to this next question, but I'm going to ask it out of obligation. Are you more a book person or a movie person?
I'm a book person that's becoming, or sorry, I'm a movie person that's becoming a book person because when I wrote out my business goals for this year, I attended a podcast festival early part of the year, and it really got me thinking about kind of trifecta marketing with, you know, having a show, having a podcast, having a book, being able to become a public speaker, kind of in that genre. But there is something that books do to you that's unique that movies and TV and film do not. In that it creates your own creative headspace. You can read something that I read and we see it, the story's not different, but you see it creatively maybe a different way than I do. So I think there's definitely power in books and writing, exploring things on a level where I would love to sit down and take you through a 2.5 hour movie that I think is the best movie of all time. But somebody can recommend a book to me and go, hey, have you read, you know, this thing about the Odyssey or Homer? And I'm like, no. And then I come out and the next day I'm like, oh my gosh, what if we did this? And, you know, it's kind of a catalyst jump off point. So, yeah.
Okay. So then if we were going to make a movie about your life, what would you want it to be called?
I'm not going to say what I was thinking to say, but...
Should I censor it?
Yeah. Actually, give me 2 seconds because I wasn't ready for that question. I usually have like a quick, funny, witty response to it, but like... so actually it would be 3 motorcycles, gelato, and surfing. What's it all about? That would be it.
I like it. I like it. Well, kind of wrapping up some of the questions that I actually have for you, but how would you encourage someone who is scared or intimidated to chase after what they believe God wants them to be doing?
Don't be scared.
They were about to say don't do it.
Yeah, don't
I was
do
like,
it.
that is not the point of the question.
Here's so to be very serious for a moment. I was just reading, forgive me, I think it's in Deuteronomy. It's like Deuteronomy 31:8. Moses gives the command to Joshua. And it's interesting because if you read the text, it's in the text. He says, and he called for him and brought him in front of everybody in Israel, I believe is the text.
Mm-hmm.
That's an important thing because when you single somebody out who's like second in command, but then you bring them before the masses, and the command that he gives to him is the command that God gives to us is, I call you to be courageous, do not be afraid. This is the things you have to know about yourself in Christ, is if you have this thing in you, the command literally is do not, don't be afraid, because he's gone before you and it's the thing that you're supposed to do. And yes, let me spoil the ending for you, okay? There's going to be trouble, there's going to be trials, there's going to be problems along the way. That's part of the process. It's made to sharpen you, it's made to refine you, it's made to get all that gunk and be like, hey, I don't want to, how can I, like, shh, no. Just like Casey, keep going, keep running the marathon, keep doing it, because that's how you get refined. And so don't be afraid. You can't be, because it's literally a command that God gives to you. Is if this is what I've set in your heart to do, that can't be a part of who you are. It's just not in your countenance. Yeah.
That's good, man. That's good.
When you edit that together, edit it real fast. Like don't be afraid. It's good.
Just move your head all around like the vloggers
do. 5 reasons why you don't need to be afraid. Yeah.
Oh man, that's awesome. Well, I only have one last question then for you, Matt. Is there anything else that you sense the Holy Spirit wants you to share on behalf of anybody who'd be listening to this?
Yeah, go check out the website, because we're doing some amazing stuff. AnointedForSuccess.com. And if I can share a little bit, if it's okay, just kind of what we're working on for this year is there's a traveling adventure series that I'm putting together. I've contacted a lot of big companies, and it has to do, if anybody's out there is passionate about wristwatches, that's the show, is kind of travel adventures based on wristwatches. And it's globally traveling adventure series. I'm talking with some companies right now for angel investors, sponsors. But if anybody wants to do something really creative on a global scale, that's what I'm working on right now. And so it's not so much about the materialism of having, nice watches. It's more kind of about the stories of why we have the things we have, why we like to do the things we do, and does marketing play a really big role in that, to the point where it influences you, to buy things. But at the end of the day, after you have them, how have you spent your time? And so it's interesting, because the show is called Time to Adventure. So it's about, like, what is your time really worth? What do you spend your time on? What have you spent your time doing up to this point in time? And so every episode we'd end the conversation with those 3 questions: is, what's your time worth? What have you done with your time? What are you going to be doing with your time in the future? So yeah, so anybody that's into kind of big international travel, stuff like that, give me a call. AnointedForSuccess.com. Let's have a conversation.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having. I was about to say having me on your podcast. Yeah.
You're welcome. Thank you.
This has been great, man.
I will now take fee of 2 coffee bags, as was promised to me at the beginning of video, for promotional material marketing.
I'm pretty sure I told you I have like $1 to my name, right? Does that go?
I will also take Levi's jeans 1987 from Sears catalog. You'll deliver through Amazon or U.S. Postal Service, up to you.
Nice. Very nice. Well, I have a silly way I like to end the podcast, actually, and that's with a high five with my guest.
Dude.
So if you could pick a number between 1 and 10, we'll count down from that. High five the camera, make it look like we're high fiving, and then we're done.
7.
7. Oh, the Bible number.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you so much for listening to this week's Infinite Story. If it resonated with you, send it to someone you think would be blessed by it. If you would like to share your story, please reach out to us at infiniteideas.studio. You never know how far the impact of your story can reach. Take care now.